treat. Oh my god. I like that it was called a meow. I did that would be you mixed with an owl. Me, owl. Anyway, I came up with a $1 million idea, which was it's a line of doors that pet doors for your cats to go out the back of the kitchen door. It's called Me Out. Meow. Alan? You're fired. Thank you. Okay. The next person we have coming up, I believe, has also been doing this for 65 years. And this person is Liza Blank. Hello, Liza.
So I've actually never done this before, although I remember today when talking to my friend that I was in an Indigo Girls cover band when I was 19.
Nice.
So I have performed. I'm going to do my best to tell this story without looking at it, but I might use it a little bit. The story is called I Found White George. So in 2008, I was a social worker at a new charter school. And the mission of the charter school was to bring in every disabled, traumatized, troubled child, and just bring them together and make them learn. And being a junkie for misery and trauma and a child savior, I was totally into it. And so Mark, a first grader, was the poster child of our mission. His mother told me when they first started that in kindergarten she sat with him nearly every day so he didn't run out of the classroom. Mark was a whirling dervish. He could not sit still for 2 minutes. Loud noises, transitions, changes, people startled him. Basically school. So most of the time, and we were in a school, so most of the time he was yelping, screaming, running around in circles, hiding in various places. But the thing about Mark was that everybody loved him. Everybody. It was sort of uncanny, actually. I would watch in shock as hyperactive children would sit patiently and listen to Mark tell a story in the most long, rambling, confusing way, marked by really hysterical explanations. And they would just sit there and listen to him. And this was a miracle at our school. The other thing was that teachers usually came to me and complained a lot about disrespectful, defiant kids, and no one came to me about Mark. In one group session I had with some kids, one of our kids went to Mark and said, I don't understand it. How are you so nice to everybody? And then the other kids, 9-year-olds mind me, were like, yeah, how do you do it, Mark? And Mark just kind of nodded and was like, I don't know. And you could tell he was really proud. There was one very, very sad, traumatized, closed-off kid whose life was just in shambles. And every day he came in and he didn't know what he was going to do, if he was going to explode, if he was going to run away, if he was going to turn a desk over. But Mark was a beacon for him. And him and Mark in the hallway was like, I would say, it was like looking at like a therapeutic horse and child. I know that's totally not PC, but I was like, oh my God. Because with this child, with Mark, this kid was just calm, happy, relaxed. It was weird, honestly. Mark was also in with the school maintenance crew, and below my office there was a roof with tons of handballs on it, and Mark was really wanting all those handballs, and he would come to me and be like, "You're going to get the handballs." I was like, "How are you going to get them? You can't climb out the window," which he did want to do. And so he figured out that he could ask Mike the janitor. So he got me to ask Mike the janitor for him, and I was like, yeah, Mike, I want to get the handballs. Like, you're going to do this for me? And Mike looked at me and he's like, who's it for? And I was like, Mark. He's like, oh, yeah, of course. So more than any other kid I worked with, Mark spoke through puppets. Now this is a thing that kids do in therapy. Children don't speak directly to you, they often speak in metaphor, but Mark really spoke through puppets. And he expressed his feelings that way. If he wasn't confident saying something, he would talk through the puppets. And his favorite puppet was George. George was a black man with a tie. And George was his bestie, and when he was mad, he would take George, and George would help him calm down. George was also the Nerf basketball replacement, and he would play basketball with George and be like, George, are you getting nauseous? It's okay, George. Look, George, three-pointer. Oh, let's George, look! Are you okay? We won, George! With George, Mark took risks that he couldn't take just by himself. So during the 5 years I worked with Mark, I saw him grow. He became a leader. He became a... Okay, he became a math whiz, and he could speak. When he was frustrated, he didn't talk in monosyllabic grunts. He actually said something to a sentence. I knew Mark was ready to leave counseling when he came up to me and said, Liza, I didn't take my medicine, but I think I can do it. I'm going to behave today. It was really shocking and amazing, and he learned how to control himself, and he learned how to control his world a little bit. And so I told Mark he could take George home with him, and of course every day at the end of counseling he'd be like, can I take George, can I take George? I said, not yet. So one day he's digging through all of the puppets, and he finds a puppet and screams out and jumps and says incredulously, Liza, George! And so the thing is that, my puppets are like therapeutic, multicultural puppets. So like there's a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, and they're like black, white, Latino, Asian. And Mark had found Latino George, and so I said to Mark, well, actually, Mark, that's Latino George. And he said, oh, I found Latino George. Is there a white George too? And so from then on, Latino George and Black George played together the whole time. And I'm done, but that was the great, they played together, and I can wrap up, time. And they palled around, and Mark wanted to make videos. This was the way he was going to close counseling off, so he made videos. And Black George, who's obviously the leader, would take Latino George through the counseling office and be like, this is the dollhouse, and this is the bell, and this is the fire-breathing dragon, be careful. And then in the video, if the fire-breathing dragon did something like burn Latino George, Mark would take control and be like, Liza, cut the show, cut the show. So, this is all true. In one of the final videos, Black George and Latino George stood over a little chair, and Mark held them, and they said goodbye to everyone in the room, and they said, we're going to miss you, Mark, we're going to miss you, George, we're going to miss you, Liza. And the truth is, I would miss Mark too, for many reasons, including the fact that Mark, like me, is sweet and overexcited and vulnerable to everything in the world that's loud and overstimulating. And I'll leave you with a little quote from Mark's story that I actually got him to write so he can take home something besides George. Liza, George, and me play a lot of games together. We read stories like The Angry Kid. We always talk a lot about different things like school and me. Now we're ending counseling on October 25th. I wish my last session was on my birthday, which is October 26th.
Story. I actually performed as a professional puppeteer for many years, touring around the world with the big Nazo puppets. And once, in the backstage area at the Bumbershoot Festival, sharing a stage with the Ethiopian Children's Circus, while wearing nothing but my tidy whities, a foam horse head, I met Chris Novoselic from Nirvana. His band, his new band after Nirvana, was performing at the same stage that us, Big Nazo Puppets, the Ethiopian Children's Circus, and his band were sharing over 4 days. And they arrived late. They were doing the late show. His band was kind of a... Maybe you guys know of his new band, I'm not sure. Anyone know of his... Okay. It was kind of like he found some vampires and they played gothic music to films that they made themselves that were kind of black and white horror films. Anyway, I was backstage. I was changing into, I did like 7 different characters during this performance where we had a full band of puppet players, and I was playing various monsters and skeletons and a horse during the performance. And in the middle of the show, I had about 20 seconds to shed the monster and adorn the horse. And be back out there to hit my cue exactly as I was about to put the horse head on, because I still had the horse costume on. Christian himself appears in the backstage and says, you know, like we're supposed to. And I'm looking at him pulling this horse head. Like, my first thought is, you're Chris Novoselic from Nirvana. And my second thought was, how come you're not unnerved by my appearance at all right now? So I looked at him, I said, I think behind stage that way. He's like, cool, man, thanks. And he left, and I got the rest of the horse costume on and went out to the club. They went underneath the stage for the next 4 days and made, it was a nest out of their cloaks. And they just sat in the darkness and smoked weed when they weren't performing. Their show was not totally great.